Welcome back, digital media students. In this OBS video, I will be going over the settings with you so that you can ensure your stream runs smoothly on not only your computer, but your viewers' devices as well. This is going to be a bit of a longer video, but I assure you that by the end of this video, you will understand the settings menu and how the settings work. I will be skipping over a few things, but you can find links in the description for more information on any of these settings. Before we do anything, let's first create a profile. Profiles allow you to save your stream settings. Click the Profile button on the toolbar at the top of your screen, and then select the New option from the menu. You can name your profile whatever you'd like. Now, let's open up the Settings menu. On the left side of the Settings menu, we have 7 categories. We will be going through each of these categories in the video. In the General category, we are presented with settings that are mostly based off your personal preference and how you would like OBS to run. In this menu, you can enable settings like automatically record when streaming and allow snapping when moving sources around on your video canvas. The Stream tab allows you to insert your stream key. A stream key gives your broadcasting software permission to stream on your profile. Your stream key can usually be found in your stream settings on the platform you're planning to stream on, for example, YouTube or Twitch. The Output section is the section that can get confusing, so pay close attention. The settings that work best for you may not work best for someone else, so let's go ahead and set our output mode to Advanced. Selecting Advanced opens up a few tabs and removes the simple setup. We will first look at the Streaming tab. Let's start by talking about your encoder. An encoder compresses and decompresses your video. One encoder uses your GPU, your graphics card, and the other uses your CPU, your software. There are 2 things to take into consideration when selecting your encoder. First, if the program you are attempting to stream is taking up a lot of your GPU, then consider using your CPU encoder, and vice versa. The second is the quality of your GPU versus your CPU. To understand rate control, let's first talk about your bitrate. Your bitrate is the size of the file you are sending to the streaming platform and to your viewers. When selecting a bitrate, you should keep in mind your video resolution and your video frame rate. Also keep in mind your own upload bandwidth. For 1080p streams, Twitch and YouTube recommend a bitrate of 6000. However, using a bitrate of 4500 creates a smaller file size for viewers who may have poor internet connection. If your resolution is 720p, the recommended bitrate is 3000. Your rate control controls your bitrate. Your rate control options are based off the encoder you use. Each rate control option does something different. Here's a graphic you can screenshot and review to understand all the different rate controls a little bit better. CBR, which is short for constant bitrate, is the recommended setting for streaming because your bitrate will always remain constant at the value you input. So if your bitrate is set to 3000, then your bitrate will always remain at 3000, even when more or less bits could be used. VBR and CQP are the recommended settings for recording. VBR stands for Variable Bitrate and adjusts your bitrate based off what bits are needed. However, this may cause some blurriness when the bits need to catch up. CQP, which stands for Constant Quantization Parameter, records at ultra-high quality, but will cause larger files than VBR. A keyframe interval tells your encoder how often it should render out a full image. This is a helpful setting when you're experiencing low frame rates. This setting is commonly set to 2, which means you will render out a full frame every 2 seconds. When setting up your recording profile, make sure the type is set to standard. Your recording path is where you can choose where your recordings will be saved on your computer. Next, you can choose your recording format. This is your preference, and you may choose whichever format you please. Setting up the rest of your recording profile is the same as your streaming profile. The Audio tab is used for separating your audio tracks. I'll be showing you how to do this in the next video when we begin building a scene. In the Replay Buffer tab, you can enable your replay buffer, which will save the last X amount of seconds of your stream or recording when you trigger it with the hotkey. You can find your saved replay buffers in your Recordings folder. We have now configured the output for your streams and recordings. Let's move on to the Audio section. The Audio section allows you to set up your default audio devices. Your sample rate should be 48, but if your audio isn't working properly, then set your sample rate to 44.1. Desktop audio will capture all sound coming from your speakers, so whatever you hear is what will be recorded. Auxiliary audio devices are the microphones you plug in. These devices will appear on the mixer in all of your scenes. You can choose to leave these disabled and add them as sources manually. In the box below your main audio settings, you can find secondary settings for any of the audio sources you have added to your scene. Enabling push to mute and push to talk from this menu is a little redundant, as you can do the same thing in the hotkeys section. In the video section, you can set the resolution of all your streams and recordings. The base resolution is the resolution in which you see your video canvas. The output scaled resolution is the resolution in which your streams or recordings are viewed. Downscale filters are only used when your base and output resolutions are not the same. Downscale filters choose which details to keep and which details to discard. The bilinear and area settings are legacy settings, which are low quality and will lead you to experience detail loss. Your common FPS value controls the frame rate of your stream or recordings. 60 frames per second is more taxing on your encoder, but looks smooth, and 30 frames per second isn't as smooth, but is less taxing than 60. In the Hotkeys tab, you can set all of your hotkeys or keybinds. You can create hotkeys to start and stop your stream or recordings, and you can bind these to the same hotkey. Hotkeys can also be set for scenes and sources. This will allow you to trigger them on and off. The thing you should take note of in the recording section is the format of your file name. Let's say your settings profile, which we created at the beginning of the video, is for a specific project. You can add the project name to the file name format, and it will apply the setting every time you record using this profile. Then, you will be able to identify the project in the recordings folder because you changed the file name. You can also set a prefix or suffix for your replay buffers, so you can differentiate them as well in your recordings folder. You have now completely set up your settings so your stream can run flawlessly. Hit apply and close the window. I will see you in the next video when we begin building scenes and begin working with different types of sources.